Welcome to Hermeus. For those watching, we're here in Atlanta, Georgia at the factory. Very excited to be there here. Very excited to welcome everyone here. Not only the Hermeus folks, but also the friends and family that are supporting us on this very audacious goal. So everyone knows the big picture long-term vision of this company is to radically accelerate air travel. But as we're winding down 2022, we want to take a moment to pause and reflect on where we've been and where we're going. You know, it's easy to get caught up in the tasks and the milestones associated with that, but really what we're about is not just incremental change, but something that massively changes how goods and people move around the world. So before we talk about the future, though, let's go back. Let's take a moment and think about who we were. So we moved into this building a year and a half ago, and it was nothing more than a concrete floor, some inventory racks, and nothing else, and a bunch of air. That summer was a summer with no AC, a winter with no heat, and while we were doing demo and construction, we were all sitting on the factory floor at a bunch of desks that we had assembled by hand, made of wood doors, 4x4s, and brackets. A year ago, we had an engine on the test stand that was untested. It was half-built. And a year ago, we were 37 people. How many were here at that time? Raise your hands. Let's go. Let's go. We've come a long way. So this is who we are now. Everything you see around you is because of direct Hermeus effort. Nothing could happen in this building except if a decision was made by one of our folks to put that in place. Something that we care deeply about is building not just, a garage airplane, but something that can scale for the future, something that can survive and thrive for decades. A company that is a world-class aerospace organization. So we've been investing in the systems and infrastructure to be able to do that. A core tenet of the company is vertical integration, and that's what we've done here. So we've spent significant resources and time and effort bringing in forward-looking technologies like additive manufacturing, 3D printing of high-temperature materials, high-temperature metallics that enable the future of growth, but also things that are traditional means of manufacturing. So things like all the multitude of large and even larger CNCs that we have, wire EDM, water jets, welding. For my electronics folks, where are they? Yeah. Building out the infrastructure to be able to assemble, solder, build harnesses, test infrastructure. We've also built all of the infrastructure associated with moving all the raw materials, all the very, very heavy things that are necessary, being able to store all those heavy things to building the future of aviation. We've expanded our footprint from Atlanta, the factory here, Site 27 at PDK Airport, where we test the engines, to also include an LA office. A full-time presence in DC, and for a while, a temporary test site that was hand-built up at Notre Dame University. And that's just all the things that you can see. Like I said, we're building for the future. So while, yes, we're running the analysis, yes, we're writing the code, we're also developing the systems that support growth, ways that we can turn analysis around very quickly at scale for the future of airplanes that we're building. Infrastructure that can deploy software to a multitude of systems across the country. And also, all of the systems and processes and initiatives that make Hermeus a great place to work, a place where we can build safely, securely, and with quality. Everything that we need to make a modern aerospace company. But that's just all the stuff that we built. What really makes this company are you all. It's the people. So we're nearly 100 people now, nearly tripled from this time last year, from some of the best centers of excellence in aerospace. Everything from places that have built some of the most safe and reliable aircraft in history, as well as new developments, building things like electric vehicles, rockets, and even other hypersonic vehicles. But also, like I said, we're building a company. So there are a multitude of folks that have come from not a logo, from other places, because building a company is much more than the hardware itself, much more than the software of the airplane, but everything that is necessary. Every single person at this company, each and every one of you, is here for a reason. And it's because of your combination of experience and exposure and receipts that you already have, but also the things that you show in terms of grit and hunger and potential. And people are beginning to notice. This year, we raised $100 million Series B. $100 million. $100 million is more than the assets under management for some venture capital firms. And we have this solely dedicated to hypersonic aircraft. And speaking of hypersonic aircraft, as far as I can tell, $100 million devoted to this problem is the largest single budget devoted to hypersonic aircraft anywhere in the world. We've also turned the attention of a major aerospace behemoth in Raytheon. So not only do they have a suite of aerospace and defense products that is nearly endless, but also billions and billions of dollars of hypersonic projects that have been developed. And while this partnership is very, very nascent, and we have a long way to go to really actualizing things, I'm very, very excited to see where this goes. And for the people watching, more to come. So while we're here, take a moment. Take the time to celebrate what we've done this year. Take the time to be proud of what we've accomplished, because 2023 is going to be way crazier than 2022. Let's go. And with that, I'll introduce my co-founder and CTO, Glenn Case.
That was beautiful, Skyler. You know, ever since the beginning of Hermeus, we always knew that we needed to be an aircraft company, right? To build high-speed aircraft. But we also needed to become an engine company. Not because, you know, hypersonic engines didn't exist until us, really. It was much more simple than that. It's the fact that it's really hard to fly an aircraft without an engine. Really hard. So we knew that we needed to add a lot of value to the space and become an engine manufacturer. And we've put a lot of time, resource, and efforts into that. And it was really, really difficult. You know, not only, like Skyler mentioned, that we started off with you know, a half-built engine and did a bunch of sea-level static testing out at Site 27 here in Atlanta, but we also built a mobile test stand, brought it up to Notre Dame, and endured the sweltering summer heat and unair-conditioned hot box, if you would, of a hypersonic engine test facility, but then also in the winter froze to death up there. But it was worth it. You guys accomplished something that was incredibly important, and arguably one of the biggest milestones in the history of Hermeus. And that milestone was mode transition, right? Going from a turbojet to a ramjet. Yeah. This is very difficult. It's probably one of the most difficult things to do in, you know, hypersonic flight. Probably the enabling technology associated with flying things fast. So just as a refresher for you, and I know all of you in the audience probably know this at this point, hopefully at least you work here, but for the viewers at home, what is mode transition, right? It's where we go from turbojet power up to ramjet power, and it's a very complicated problem, right? Not only do we have to manage the complexities of getting a turbojet to work at much higher speeds with our pre-cooler, but then we also have to work with the difficulties of the timing and the efficiencies of high-speed propulsion flight, right? And you guys did it, and it was fantastic. But I think the thing that I'm most proud of, though, is not that you just completed the technical task, right? And it was a full Hermeus effort. It wasn't just the engines team, wasn't just the structures team. And everyone had a hand in this, really, either bending tubes or flaring tubes or just connectorizing harnesses. It was amazing. But one of the more important things is that you guys came on budget and on time in 21 months and $18 million. But I think even more important than that, you were the first commercial company to ever develop a TBCC and test it. That's something you can take home for the rest of your lives. For the rest of your lives. But even though I said we had to be a little bit of an engines company, having an engine without an airframe is kind of pointless. So we kind of have to do that too. So we put a lot of work into that, right? Quarterhorse, we've put a ton of work in the past year in what Quarterhorse looks like. The engineering behind it. What size should it be? How big of a planform should it have? How big of an inlet should it have? Et cetera, et cetera. And it may look a little different than what you've seen in the past at home, publicly at least. And that's because we've, as the vehicles lengthened, we realized that the inlet needed to be underneath the vehicle. And there's a lot of confluence between that and other platforms that we're going to develop in the future, such as Darkhorse and Halcyon. But iteration here is 100% the key. That's one of the core tenets that we have here at Hermeus. And it's enabled by the tools that you guys develop. Those model-based engineering tools, systems engineering tools that allow us to explore the design space quite effectively and rapidly to understand what the vehicle needs to do and the mission it needs to accomplish. So what is that mission, right? Again, a little bit of preaching to the choir here, but for the folks at home, Quarterhorse is essentially a hypersonic flight test bed. Its mission's simple. Take off under its own power from a runway, accelerate, transition at a high Mach number, and be reusable, and maybe make a few pennies on the way. But we're going to crawl, walk, run into this, right? The first tail, we have a lot to learn about flight that has nothing to do with high-speed flight. And that first aircraft might be subsonic capable, maybe even supersonic capable. But tails 2 and 3 are going to really exercise and really stretch the legs of Quarterhorse, hitting speeds of Mach 4 and beyond. But what's more incredible was when we do that, we're going to create a new airspeed record held by the fabled SR-71 and usurp that. Yeah! But we're not just making, paper airplanes here. We're actually building hardware. We have hardware that we're developing behind us, right? We have hardware that's coming off the machine shop. We're developing, components and demonstration hardware that we're able to actually create other systems. We're going to roll a vehicle out of here by the end of next year, and we're going to go to flight tests in 24. Seems incredulous, but you guys have hit your milestones. You guys have been on budget, so you haven't proven me wrong yet. You guys are awesome. And I think one of the reasons for that is being able to get to integrated systems quickly, right? And the perfect example of that is the flight deck off to my left, or probably behind me at this point. The flight deck, of course, is, as its name implies, something you would see on a modern-day aircraft. Everything that you need, the controls, the software, the end-to-end communications, everything that really gets you that integrated system quickly. And that's one of the key things here. But again, one of the best things about that is on time, on budget. And that's enabled by this amazing team. I love you very much. Thank you for being the best team on planet Earth. And with that, Mike Smayda. I was so enamored with Skyler's speech. I'm sorry. All right, Mike Smayda, Chief Product Officer and Founder.
Thank you, Glenn. Mike Smayda here. All right. So when we formed this company back in late 2018, we kind of knew where we were heading. Long-term vision is commercial passenger travel, radically accelerating air travel. Across the Atlantic in 90 minutes is kind of the unofficial tagline. We knew we had to build a demonstrator, but how do you get there? You can't just go build a demonstrator and expect to raise $10 billion to go build a certified passenger jet. Regardless of the scale or speed, a certified passenger jet is a very expensive proposition. So really, the answer that we came up with is we need to solve really important problems for customers along the way. And we kind of thought about that a couple different ways, and what could we do with the demonstrator? But really, we figured there's got to be something in the middle, maybe something with a little bit more range than the demonstrator, which doesn't really have any cruise baseline, something smaller and less range and payload than the people carrier Halcyon. And we've kind of alluded to it a little bit in the past. Glenn kind of mentioned it a little bit before. But I think it's time to pull back the curtain a bit and introduce to the world that vehicle, which is called Darkhorse. There she is. So Darkhorse is a multi-mission uncrewed aircraft that cruises at Mach 5 when operational. It'll be the fastest airplane in the world, reusable obviously because airplanes. And as you can imagine, a lot of the use cases for this vehicle are in the national security space. Not all of them, some commercial use cases as well. But because of that, we're going to be intentionally a little bit light on details at this point. But I'll urge you to stay connected and stay tuned for some periodic updates over the next few years as we move from Quarterhorse into larger, longer range things. So looking forward to being able to share more over time. And I think that's all we'll say for now. So with that, I'd like to introduce the fourth co-founder and our Chief Executive Officer, AJ Piplica.
Thanks, Mike. So we've dug really deep here on what we've done this year and a little bit about what's coming in the future, but I want to take a bit of a step back. About a month ago, this company celebrated its 4th birthday. The number of startups that make it to their 4th birthday is quite small, so we need to clap for that. That is fantastic. And as I've kind of reflected on things over the past 4 years, there's a question that comes up more often than any other. Why are you doing this? Why did you choose to do this versus anything else that you could do? And the answer to that question is the massive impact that not just this technology, but the products and services that come after it, the defense applications that can help prevent a large-scale geopolitical conflict. These things will have a massive, sustainable, positive impact, not just on the people in this room, but for the entire human race. And there are not many things that you can spend your time doing that you can say that about. So that is why we do this. Next. There are a lot of things, though, if you look back in the history of aviation over the past 100 years or so, that trends that have kind of been left by the wayside. And one of those is speed. If you look back at the first, one of the first Boeing commercial aircraft, the 720, which was a modification of the first commercial aircraft that Boeing put out, the 707, its max speed was Mach 0.91. That's 10% faster than the most recent 737 MAX that Boeing put out today. So over the past, 50, 60 years, we have gone backwards in speed. And another thing that we've been missing, that I think this company hits on better than any I've ever encountered, is iteration. Now, this picture that you see here is a mural that sits in the halls of the Pentagon, and it's called Wings Through Time. And it's a map, a timeline of all of the aircraft that have been developed for US Air Force over the past 100 years, to scale, both in time and aircraft scale. And there's one thing that you notice when you look at this picture. You see the density of aircraft that are developed in the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, especially the 50s. And then as you continue past the 50s, that density drops off and drops off and drops off. That means that the pace of iteration in aircraft development has done nothing but go backwards since the 1950s. And that is incredibly stark. Like, in the past decade, our iteration rate on new aircraft is worse than it was in the Wright brothers' days. And that is something that this company is changing. Now, what have we focused on in aviation in that time? It's not like we've just been sitting twiddling our thumbs. We focused on a couple really important things: safety, reliability, and efficiency. And that efficiency has taken the form of improved engine efficiency, improved aerodynamic efficiency, and so forth to reduce the costs of operating aircraft in commercial ways. And the way that that's kind of manifested itself in terms of how airlines differentiate their products is through comfort and luxury. Every airplane that flies around commercially today does the exact same thing. It takes people from point A to point B in just about the same amount of time. The way that things are differentiated is based on how much legroom you get, how flat your seat lays, and how expensive your drinks are. And if you ask me, there are way better ways to spend extra resources that are going to those things that can produce more for a broader scope of people. And that comes down to speed. If we take those resources and apply them to speed, now we can unlock the latent potential of humanity that comes from the fact that we still move around the planet at 0.8 Mach. And that's what Halcyon will do. Halcyon will bring time back to us. Time is our most precious resource. It is something that we can never get back. It only moves in one direction. If you ask me, I'd much rather be spending my time on the ground than up in an airplane. When we spend time together, we connect more, we create more, and we live more. And that is why time is so critical. And that is what you all are building. So what does that actually mean? Well, we talk about using resources instead of for comfort to put them towards speed and thus time. And when you do that at a global scale, you unlock that latent potential of humanity in both the social and an economic sense. In an economic sense, if we speed up the world by 5x, that will drive global GDP growth 2.5% a year. That's $4 trillion a year. And that's not zero sum. That's not moving money around from one place to another. That is new growth that didn't exist unless you all built it. And that's not to say enough about time itself. So just taking one example of how what you are building will change the world. The air travel route from New York to London carries about 500,000 business class passengers a year today. And Halcyon will reduce the time that they spend on an aircraft by about 6 hours. That is 3 million hours a year on that one route alone that you are saving people. 3 million hours. That is 5 lifetimes, to put that in perspective, on one route in 1 year. So I cannot underscore how critical this is. But more importantly, there's nobody else out here doing this. There is nobody else coming to unlock what we are trying to do here. If not us, then who? Now, there's nothing to say that this is going to be easy. We're going to break a lot of things. We've already broken a lot of things. We'll continue to break them, but with intention. And I want to share a little anecdote with you that hopefully kind of grounds what can be done when you pair getting to hardware quickly with iteration and flight test, which is what's coming. The X-15, fastest, I'm not even going to say airplane because it's not an airplane, it's a rocket plane. The fastest rocket plane, fastest a human's ever flown in the atmosphere. The third flight of the second vehicle lost an engine, one of the 4 engines, just after release from the B-52. They couldn't unload fuel fast enough, and they landed way heavy, way beyond what they ever expected to. They snapped the vehicle in half. You can see it right there. Now, something like this happened today in a government program or even a commercial development. You snap a vehicle in half, your program's probably over, especially in the aircraft world. Well, they got this aircraft put back together, recertified, and back in the air in 3 months. 3 months. We will break that record. Because we're going to break an airplane, we're going to put another one in the air in less than 3 months. Guaranteed. Now, we have everything we need to succeed on this journey. We've got the team, we've got the partners, we've got the customers, we've got the facilities. Everything that you all have worked tirelessly to build and put together have given us a chance at success. But that is all that it is still. Success is still one of the many outcomes that can occur here. And I assure you, it is not the most likely one. The most likely outcome here, even though we've made progress and we've made progress and we've reduced risk, the most likely outcome is still failure. And that is why we do this. Because we have our backs against the wall, and that's when we produce our very, very best. Now, the road that we have to walk this coming year in 2023, in 2024, and in the years beyond, as we fly Quarterhorse, develop Darkhorse, and push toward Halcyon toward the end of the decade, the road that we're about to walk doesn't exist. We are forging that path with every step that we take every single day. But that is why we do it. That is why we have a responsibility to do it. So let's go. Let's go. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for everything. Go have a fantastic night.